Greetings, good day, good evening, good afternoon. Whatever time you may be hearing this, I want to take the time to say a humble salutations to you. Welcome back to The Healer with yours truly, Keziah Renee. On today's Tuesday, we're back with a Taboo Tuesday topic, and I'm just going to start out by saying trigger warning, abuse, sexual abuse, and just the outcomes of that are kind of the topic of today's conversation. This is something that I've honestly been sitting within myself a lot. However, I've been noticing within the masses, the media, and even my close friends' followings online, that a lot of us encountered sexual abuse at a very, very early age. And more often than not, those same people, they ended up kind of displaying or involving themselves in sexual activities at, that kind of same young age. Or just from my personal experience, wanting mature relations, at a very young age because you were touched by somebody older than you. It's really crazy how that plays out into our sexual desires today. Even things like wanting rough sex, being attracted to men who are older than you, or even being attracted to men or women, this is not gender specific, who are younger than you. Depending on your experience, all of those things could come to play. And if you're not doing the conscious work to kind of figure out your whys and look back on your actions and behaviors and connect the dots between your uncontrollable experiences, then you'll be kind of living a life that is not yours. It kind of was put onto you or given to you as a means of you feeling comfortable and safe, when in reality, those experiences aren't normal. So by trade, those habits aren't either. It's just like, even though I was done the way I was done by people my age, honestly, and those older than me, like one of my first experiences was, a guy my same age basically coercing me into oral sex. And as a child, all you want, is to make other people happy, to feel wanted. But it's like, if you're already messed up in your brain and sexual activities are seen as rewarding or like you're doing something good to you, you're not going to think in your mind as a child, like, oh, this other child is coercing me. You're going to think, oh, no, like, they just want to enjoy themselves and they want me to help them do that. And, like, looking back on those type of experiences, it's like, oh, no, you poor baby. Because ultimately that person went and told everyone, oh, this person she just satisfied me orally, but didn't say any of like the pretense and context of, oh, I coerced her into doing it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like for the boy in that situation, he was praised and probably still is praised. And me, I was looked at as fast, a whore. And it's crazy because nobody even came up to me and talked to me about that situation. Like, it wasn't until years later, honestly. And I'm talking about a couple months ago. And this happened whenever I was a small child, like single digits. That someone just asked me straight up about the situation and kind of what it entailed. Yeah, but to digress on that, I just realized that those kind of experiences shaped me into, in my early days, whenever I was willingly experimenting with sex, not liking head. And I couldn't, like, not liking to give oral sex, aka head. Like, we all know what the fuck that is. Like, but I just felt myself not liking to do that. And I could not explain why. But all I could say to the guys I was interacting with was, it's not you. I can't really explain it, though. It's me all the way. I just don't necessarily like doing it. And then it's like I got to a point to where if I did do it, when I realized, okay, I do like doing this, it's just those experiences made me not want to, it was still like, okay, but you can't make me feel in any way, shape, or form that you're forcing me to do this. So it was like, you can't touch me, basically. And I know a lot of guys that kind of like touching the girl's head and just playing with her hair and things like that. So it was, I'm not going to say unfulfilling, period. But to a degree, it was disconnected. And even growing within that experience, I realized, oh, I do like, my head and stuff played with. I do like my hair grabbed. It's just, again, those experiences where I was, literally forced in situations made the optional experiences not pleasurable. And it took me a lot of time to grow out of that. And I honestly didn't really start to do that until I had my my ex-boyfriend, my last partner. I kind of let him know. It was the first guy that I was really vulnerable about the experiences with. Because, like, casual sex, okay, I'm not going to tell you my whole life story, but you deserve to know a little. But this is, my partner. So I told him pretty much everything. And he was patient with me. He didn't, force me to do things that I didn't necessarily want to do. But even a part of me knew, like, he wasn't necessarily being fulfilled. And that was doing something to me. But ultimately, I ended up talking these things out, and, it was a better experience for us both. But I'm just, saying all that to say we shame people for being, like, expressive with their sexuality. Because me personally, I am. Like, I'm not going to say I'm hypersexual only because of my trauma, because that's not true. But I can say I was hypersexual at a very young age because of the things I had gone through. And I don't want to shame people for having sexual desires, and I don't want sexual desires to be seen as negative or only trauma-induced. But I just want to bring light that there is a connection, but also a distinction between the two. And while someone, and I'm a perfect example of that, while someone may be or may have been hypersexual due to trauma, they can still, within their being, be just hypersexual or just outwardly, openly sexual person. Like me, I'm very sensual. I love connectedness. I love passion. I love the 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 angst, the the thrills, like all of those feelings that you get, that come with being, intimate. The tension. Oh my gosh, that's the word I was looking for. Like, things like that are very alluring to me. And then it's also, on the same point, the vulnerability, the expressiveness that someone displays, when they're in that sensual state. Not everybody sees that. It's some people think, just depending, it's ugly. Some people think it's the most beautiful side of them. Some people are just take on a demeanor that they wish they could express outwardly. Like, it's just so beautiful. And I'm not saying it to say I've had sex with 50 billion people. Like, no. I've personally only had sex with 7 people. But the number of people that you've had sex with doesn't matter. It's just within all the things that I've been through, within people talking about me and not talking to me, it's just, a lot of people think things that aren't true. And I'm not going to say it's okay, but people deserve to know the truth. And people deserve to hear the truth and let their truth be heard. And that's, another reason why I started this podcast. But it's just like saying all that to say, I honor people who are sexual beings, and I also honor the space where people may have been overly sexual being before they were ready to do that. And that can only happen, unfortunately, in one devastating way. But it's important that we make space, for these people. There's a whole generation of us. And I'm not going to say it's only us, but there is literally a whole generation of people who I was thinking about this earlier, and I was thinking 1 in 5, but honestly, you could probably find 1 in 3 people who have been, like, sexually abused in their life. And most of that was the adults that raised people like me in Generation Z. And so it's like whenever they saw those repeated signs, whenever they could see stuff like that happening, because they didn't go to therapy, because no one stood up for them, they froze in the midst of that. Or they got angry, or they denied, or they swept it under the rug, because it's triggering seeing those things repeat, because they know what that did to them. And it's ultimately them not knowing how to help you deal with it, because they didn't get that. So they can't help you do something that they could never do or have never done. And I think that's important. That just goes into why it's so important that we learn how to regulate our nervous system, how to be at peace with these things, how to really overcome these traumatic experiences and transmute that energy in us so we can really thrive and live the way that we're supposed to. Like, there's no reason why the next couple generations of children should not be emotionally strapped. Like, I'm talking about unshakable. Do you hear me? Like, the amount of work I see everybody who has kind of had an unfortunate start to their life put in to creating a better experience for themselves is just overwhelmingly amazing. And I just know that because people are spending that time putting the energy into themselves, that's what they're going to be able to get out of the world, one, and put back into it for two. And the former, honestly, I feel like is the most important, because you deserve to get what you give. And no matter what that is, you deserve to get what you give. So, be careful. And you never know who's protected out here. But it's just like doing things like breath work, doing things like yoga. Man, the craziest thing I ever heard in my life was yoga was demonic. And that came from my own mother. And like, after she said that, at that moment I knew we were on two different walks of life. And we would probably never see eye to eye. And she would never respect me in the way that God intends her to. But, that's okay, and I digress on that. But it's important that we lean into things like art therapy and going outside and walking barefoot and holding each other's hands and crying together and singing to each other and just holding each other and holding space for each other. It's important to also learn, whenever you've been abused like this, how to platonically interact with the opposite sex or with the same sex, whatever being kind of interacted with you in that negative manner. It's important that you kind of learn a platonic interaction that does not involve anything from you in an intimate or sexual way, like literally. And you don't have to tell everybody, your story, but do know, and this comes with discernment, the people that are safe to turn to. Not to say, that you're going to get it right every time, but it's important to say that you won't if you don't try. I just truly want our people to get better and heal. And I know that that's coming. Like, I know it's going to happen. I know it's happening. Like, I'm witnessing it. But I think it's important that attention to these type of topics is drawn. And I wanted to make the conversation more than just a trend on TikTok. I wanted this to be something that people could come back and listen to, because the internet is fleeting, and we are honestly in control of our digital legacy. And this is part of that. This is something that's going to outlast me. And I'm just grateful to be able to be a part of these conversations. But yeah, like the trend on TikTok, it went like, everybody talks about a whole generation being hypersexual, like that same generation wasn't molested. Or everybody talks about a whole generation being hypersexual by the same generation that molested us. Because it's the uncles, it's the grandpas, it's the big cousins, It's it's the age equal cousins. It's all of those things. And again, like, it's important that we make space for these things and not just treat them as things that we can acknowledge for 5 seconds and then move past. Like, no. It takes work, to heal from trauma, especially of that magnitude. Because more often than not, you were a child. You didn't know any better, or you were taken advantage of, or you were told, if you do this, I'll do that. Like, in whatever manner, the case may have been for you, just know, like, it wasn't okay. You didn't deserve that. And do not allow those people, that person, that place, that time, that space to take any more energy from you. Do not allow it. Do not allow it. But yes, this is the goal, honestly, for myself. I'm positively moving in that direction, and I'm grateful to be able to speak on my experiences because of that. And I can only hope and pray the same for you. You know, if you want to talk to me, or if you have any just questions or concerns or just comments, feel free to follow me or join my Discord. It's the Healing Hub 333. Or you can find me on there, KK, the Healer. I'm excited, to continue this life journey with you all. But I wanted to start getting a little bit more personal, a little bit more raw and real. Especially with my experiences, because I feel like I say it all the time, but I've been through a lot. So I know I can help people with just as much and more. That being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful night and a beautiful tomorrow. In the words of my beautiful grandmother, Hilda, I love you so much. She's my inspiration for creating these spaces and doing the work that I do, truly. Yeah. She's not without fault, but who is? See you later, guys. One love.